Welcome to another episode of the 13 News Now Sports Overtime Podcast. We are joined by the world's foremost walker, Brian Smith. Brian, how you doing?
Thank you.
No problem. And of course, the world's foremost talker, Shane Fordham. Shane.
Very good, very good. Amped up. Let's go. Let's get it.
I do a little bit of both. You know, I walk and I talk and I yell a little bit and I cry after the pod most nights, but I'm Connor Real and we are here. And as we have done throughout the month of June, we begin the podcast with the NBA Finals. Game 5 is in the books. The Oklahoma City Thunder have officially asserted their dominance. I have a feeling Shane Fordham's going to be a little extra loud on this one because the prodigal son of ball movement, Tyrese Halliburton, did not. I don't know if he went to the game. I think he missed the. He's still at the hotel in Oklahoma City. So the OKC Thunder have taken control. They're up 3-2 with a chance to seal it in 6 in Indianapolis. Shane Fordham, we're going to start with you this time. Give us your thoughts on Game 5.
Question: Y'all still think Hallie's a superstar? Is that what that's still the general consensus?
I asked for your thoughts.
Hallie's a superstar.
I said he's scraping. I say he's scraping stardom. That was my exact quote.
No,
I said he's scraping stardom.
Don't backtrack now.
I didn't say that. I said he is scraping stardom. I think he is. I still think he is, despite the struggles.
That's crazy.
He's the reason why. He's one of the main reasons why they're there. That's my.
This is the final step. This is the final step for Halliburton.
It's not the final step. This can't be the final. This is, if anything, this is step 1 or 2. This can't be the final step. We still need to see him be consistent through a regular season. This isn't the final step. He's got still a ways to go before, in my opinion, we can start calling him a bona fide superstar. He's got a ways to go.
Yeah, but I will say this, guys. Remember, you guys said, what, 4-1, no problem? I was the only one that said of the three of us, I like the Thunder in 6 because I thought
that's true.
The Pacers were a team that could hang with them. So I'm just saying, and even though I said 3-1, I thought the Pacers would go up 3-1. They should have. They didn't, which is fine. I get it.
And I think it is fair to note, great call, Brian Smith, great call. I think it is fair to note that Tyrese Halliburton did go to the locker room in the first quarter with a calf. He's a game-time decision for Game 6. He looked like he was moving well. I'll give you that. And I didn't think he was aggressive enough offensively. At some point, you just got to get some shots up, even if they're bad shots, which I thought he did in Games 3 and 4. But he did have a calf injury. Shane Fordham loves to point out injury excuses when it comes to guys that he likes when he's trying to shape his narrative. So let's take note of that. But unquestionably, a disappearance for Halliburton in this moment. I think he had 4 points, and it was all free throws, and he did not convert a shot from the field. So, a tough one for Halliburton. His path to superstardom comes with obstacles. In the past, he has overcome those obstacles time and time again, which is why I believe that path remains the correct one to give him. Shane, outside of the Halliburton situation, we know that you got a feather in the cap now of the Halliburton's not a superstar. Outside of the Halliburton situation, what did you think of Game 5?
Well, yeah, as a Sixers fan, it really made me miss TJ McConnell. Yeah. I mean, honestly, really almost outplayed almost everyone on the court except for Siakam on the Pacer side, that is, on the Pacer side. But yeah, it made me miss TJ. I mean, playing defense, scoring 13 points in 7 minutes in the third quarter. I mean, really kept the Pacers in the game at that point. At that point during play, almost kind of looked like Game 1 where it looked like the Pacers were going to, surge back in a comeback win, but that's where you miss a guy like Halliburton. That's where you miss your closer, your leader, your cold stone finisher, in that type of moment. But I feel like this game was definitely, for the Pacers side, that is, I think this was definitely about TJ. I thought TJ had a great performance, and then also Siakam doing it both ways, keeping them in the game, leading them in scoring with 28. So I think overall the supporting cast of the Pacers did as much as they could. just in light of, their star player not being the superstar that, everyone has made him out to be.
And it looks like
0 points, zero offensive points,
is
zero.
For you, B. Smith?
I believe he is. He is.
Yeah, I think the digital gods were telling him. Yeah, that's
Camera
what happened.
died. They didn't. I was cooking too much. They didn't want me to get going.
He got too hot.
Yeah.
The thing couldn't handle it. And I think we're probably going to pause the pod and cut this out. But in the interest of filling time, just in case we keep it in, y'all should see the setup that this guy Shane Fordham has in his room. Me and B. Smith and I are working with cardboard and duct tape and no freezing. Shane Fordham has a ESPN quality podcast studio in his house. Come on,
try to do it right. Try to do it right.
But you were making, as you said, you were in fact cooking because TJ McConnell legitimately dominated the third quarter of this basketball game, and he got the Pacers back into it.
He really did.
18 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, 4 rebounds, a huge game from TJ McConnell. He is unquestionably fearless. I mean, just an incredible basketball player who has carved out a really special career in the NBA. Now, B. Smith, I'm going to let you go next. Shane, did you have anything you wanted to add? Because you did get cut off there.
No, I mean, I know we'll touch on we got plenty of time to talk about the Thunder because some of that did come, my last take on the pod did come into fruition a little bit, little 50-50 on that. But yeah, B. Smith, go ahead.
That's where I was headed. I was headed to Oklahoma City. How well they played. I know Halliburton didn't have a great game, but the Thunder played incredible basketball. B. Smith.
I had to start off highlighting TJ just because of my history. I had to highlight TJ because of my history. But yeah.
There you go. I too have a Knicks fascination and cheering interest because you've got Isaiah Hartenstein, a former Knick for the Thunder. And then on the other side, you've got the Pacers' Obi Toppin, who's really kind of coming to his own in this series.
Tough game for Obi Toppin, though.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He wasn't allowed to do stuff like this when he was with New York. I think everybody saw that.
12 points, but he had the worst plus minus on the team.
He was effective. He was being effective. It was spreading the wealth up through game 4. They could have had a chance to go up 3-1, didn't. They faded. It tied. So, but yeah, I think we all kind of came across in agreement that the Thunder ultimately will win this series. But I also said too, a credit to Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Pacers. He's literally kept them in this series. He was the one who was dominant in terms of coaching in this series.
I just want I want to find someone in my life, and I have a wonderful family and great friends, no shade to them, but I need someone in my life who loves me as much as B. Smith loves Rick Carlisle. I mean, that is genuine affection, and it is well-deserved by Rick Carlisle because he is one of the, I think himself is one of the all-timers and a future Hall of Famer, no question.
Let me tell you this, though, about Rick Carlisle. We have seen him, B. Smith, as you say, dominate throughout the season, dominate throughout the postseason, but he didn't dominate in Game 5. He did not dominate in Game 5. I thought he made a huge mistake continuing. Yeah, he made a huge mistake continuing to play Tyrese Halliburton throughout that game, especially when in this series, you need to live to fight another day. I thought him continuing to play Tyrese Halliburton, especially with how well TJ McConnell ended up playing, throughout the stretch of that game. That move could easily be the deciding factor of this series. Aside from how well the Thunder looked last night, especially Jalen Williams, who, we've been waiting for him to kind of have sort of an emerging game like this for months now, at this point in the season. I felt like this could really be the deciding factor of this series is them not having Tyrese Halliburton because he officially does have a calf strain now. We may see him in Game 6, but it's just he really put this Pacers team in a difficult situation because it's not like he's coming in fresh. He's coming in more waned than any other star on the court, including both teams, Thunder and Pacers. So
it actually kind of reminds me of that time where Kevin Durant, when he was playing for Golden State, was dealing with a calf issue, and then all of a sudden it gave out on him, and he was done for the series. So yes, I'm not saying he plays like Kevin Durant, but the similar calf issue.
Well, I would hope that's not the point you're making.
Not Kevin Durant. No.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Clarifying things. No, yeah.
All right, let's take a break from game analysis to do a brief Connors trivia corner. What NBA team did Rick Carlisle win a championship with as a player?
I want to say the
Rick
Boston
Carlisle did some things. Indeed, it is the Boston Celtics. Brian Smith comes through with the trivia. The 86 Celtics featured Rick Carlisle on their bench, which perhaps is where he learned many of his fantastic coaching moves. He spent a lot of time on NBA benches. Yes, Shane.
Hey, real quick, Connor, I think it's really interesting how a lot of the greatest coaches in the NBA are typically role players. Like, you don't see the stars, you don't see the stars, aside maybe from Jason Kidd, you don't really see the stars end up being the go-to coaches, the best coaches in the game. And B. Smith, I know this kind of off topic, but B. Smith, I just thought that was an interesting point, how being a role player, you're used to, relying on the system more. And as a coach, you obviously have to know how to work the system. But I just thought that was an interesting.
It's a great point. And there is another prevailing theory as to why that's the case. And it's because when star players become coaches, star players are just like, why can't these guys do all the awesome stuff I did? And why aren't they all in the gym at 4 a.m.? Right?
Yeah.
Star players cannot understand why these players, and so it's more difficult for them. Magic Johnson is not going to be able to get all the players on the team to play like Magic Johnson, but Rick Carlisle can maybe have a better opportunity to get all the role players fill their role successfully.
But see, that's
another theory.
Well, see, that's what's interesting about,
because the greatest players, you can't add a lot. The question that was always made, whether it was Magic, Jordan refused to want to coach players because they
he couldn't do it
too much. Because as one person said it, I think it was James Worthy, Magic's teammate, when he was head coaching, when Magic was coaching the Lakers. When you start asking players to play the way you played, it's not a good formula. It's a formula for disaster, because that's asking too much.
And to work the way you worked. There is a through line with every superstar in NBA history, except for Shaquille O'Neal, who's the most physically gifted player to ever play in the league. And that through line is that they outworked everybody. Yes. And so they cannot understand why other players don't work the way they work. And it's probably a tougher thing to bestow upon young players. Should we do one more Connors trivia corner?
Real quick, Connor. That's what really makes Jason Kidd interesting, though, is because even though there was a time in his career where he was a superstar, he also had a time in his career where he wasn't really the superstar of his squad, but still being a star, he was still working the system. He was still orchestrating the system. He was still orchestrating the scheme, the plan on the court. Obviously having to play off of Dirk Nowitzki from his time in Dallas. And then as a point guard, point guards usually see the court in different ways than any other position normally. So but I think it's definitely an interesting parallel, how
100%. I mean, Kidd was a role player for 7-8 years there, a long time on the Knicks as a role player. All right, final trivia corner. This one's a trick question. What former NBA MVP did in fact win 2 championships as a head coach? Trick question.
Wow.
We'll do a 5-second count. We don't want to keep the viewers waiting.
Say that question again.
What former NBA MVP won 2 championships as a head coach?
As a head coach. Bill Russell.
It wasn't. Yes! B. Smith is on fire! Bill Russell, 2 championships as a player coach for the Boston Celtics. Pretty impressive. Okay, so let's get back to this game. We may have buried the lead here. Halliburton has been a big talking point on this podcast, so we wanted to start with him. But a new potential superstar may have arrived, right? Jalen Williams with one of the great finals performances of the 2020s. 40 points, a 40-piece for Jalen Williams in a pivotal game, and you felt it. It was not a quiet 40. he was a beast. 14 of 25 from the field, plus 14, plus minus, 6 boards, 4 assists, and a steal, 2 monster dunks in the first quarter, and then he helped seal it at the end. Jalen Williams, our big question, could Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren perform up to the level you need from your 2 and your 3 to win a title? Jalen Williams has had a couple shaky moments in these playoffs, but he proved that he can do it at the highest level in that game right there. He was the best player on the court. Jalen Williams, at this point, you got to start looking at what kind of potential does this guy have. I have always thought that if push came to shove and the luxury tax became an issue and the Thunder had to get rid of either Williams or Holmgren, I've always said, get rid of Williams. Holmgren's too unique. But after a performance like that, I mean, Williams, we're looking at someone who could end up being a 10 or 12-time All-Star if he continues this trajectory. That is really special stuff. 40 points in a do-or-die game of the finals when it's 2-2 is really, really special. Were you guys surprised by what you saw from Jalen Williams? And do you look at him a little differently now? Hard not to.
Well, Shane, you first.
Well, yeah, I mean, I told you guys after game 4, I thought Jalen Williams was in for a bounce back for sure. I mean, he has gradually been playing better as the postseason has progressed. I didn't think it would be to this level. I mean, it's hard to predict, anybody dropping 40 points on a finals stage, unless it's like Bron, KD, Steph, Giannis, Jokic. It's hard to predict anyone outside of that group having that sort of performance in what we saw game 5. But like I said, I thought he was in for a bounce back. I thought we were definitely going to see an uptick in production for sure. I mean, this maybe changes my view of him slightly in a sense of I think he can get to that level faster than what I thought he was, than what I thought the rate of travel was going to be prior to this game. But yeah, I definitely think, Connor, in your scenario that you brought up, if you do have to choose between Holmgren and Jalen Williams, I know this is going to sound a little bit like recency bias, but I definitely think Jalen Williams would be the better pick, not just because of what we saw in game 5, but just because of his overall skill set. I think we know Jalen Williams as an efficient scorer, but he's also an efficient defender. Like, he is a better overall two-way player than Chet Holmgren. I mean, he was on the All-NBA list this year for defense. One of the exactly which defensive team he was on escapes me. I believe it might have been second team. I believe it was all NBA second team defense. But he is clearly a defensive guy as much as he is an offensive guy. Maybe slightly more offense, but he's definitely one of, right now, the best two-way players in the NBA. And I think that's something you got to bank on.
Second team all defense. Great call by Shane. I still think Holmgren is so unique. And if for the next decade you're going to be running into Victor Wembanyama in the Western Conference playoffs, you're going to want a guy like Chet Holmgren on your team. And even though he maybe is not filling up the points section, he is getting a lot of blocks. He's deterring a lot of shots at the rim. Holmgren he'll have really dominant stretches and then he'll kind of fade. But it does look like Jalen Williams could be more Scottie Pippen than he is Jamal Murray, if that makes sense. Someone who is in
that's a good example.
Number 2, who is capable of carrying the team for stretches. And then, he's more physically imposing than I gave him credit for, right? I think he's like 6'5", but he's got long arms.
6'6".
He's extremely athletic.
Actually.
So more physically imposing than I necessarily thought that he was. And then also, Shane was right about Williams having a big game. B. Smith was right about this series going to 6 and maybe the Thunder winning in 6. Let's do a whole round of props. In the last podcast, I said I expected the Thunder to start to improve with their ball movement a little bit. They did not do that in game 4, but in game 5, 24 assists. That offense finally started to open up a little bit, and it helped that they were making some shots. So the Thunder are back. All 3 of us were right in some way, shape, or form.
Well,
look at us.
Let me say this, too, about Jalen Williams. So I'm looking at numbers. You saw an ascension because I look back. Game 1, he had 17. Game 2, he had 19. I believe he had 20 in game 3, 27 in game 4, and 40 in game 5. So when you're looking at someone who is showing his presence in this series. Jalen Williams has been steadily increasing, and there's been a level of consistency behind it. So this way it helps guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander even more. He is his Pascal Siakam, so to speak, when it came
and with
to.
that, let's move on to Game 6. Do you guys expect this to go to 7? What do you see happening in Game 6? I'll just go first and get mine out of the way. If Halliburton were healthy, I do think the Pacers would have won Game 6 because they've shown themselves to be a formidable opponent. With Halliburton in the situation that he's in, both in terms of his impact on the court and the psychology of either losing your best player or having him be hampered in such a big spot, I think the Thunder close this thing out on the road. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, B. Smith.
I say, it's over. If Halliburton's dealing with any level of a strain in any way, shape, or form, he is minus the scoring inability. He is the engine that kind of runs things. He is the reason why Halliburton's been successful, and the rest of that team. So, I think that it's over now. It's over in 6 games.
Yep. This series is over. I mean, and this is no disrespect to the Pacers team. It's really more of I'm saying this out of respect for Tyrese Halliburton because, I mean, like you said, even though okay,
I'm sorry.
Let's
sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna say respect.
Let's be professional.
Him the entire
let's be professional. Let's reel it in. Let's lock in. Let's be professional. Let's lock
I'm sorry,
in.
that made me laugh. I'm sorry, my bad.
Showing respect to Tyrese Halliburton. Okay. One more question on the Halliburton thing. I don't know if this is entertaining to discuss. It's so speculative, but I want to bring it up, and we'll see if people enjoy this type of discussion. You're Rick Carlisle. Let's say the decision is ultimately up to you. The Pacers team doctors come to you and say, look, Halliburton is at risk for a bigger injury if he goes out there and plays. Tyrese Halliburton comes to you and he says, I'm good. It's Game 6 of the finals. This is what we do it for. I'm going out there and I'm playing. It's Carlisle's decision. You're Rick Carlisle. What do you do?
I sit him. As painful as it is, I am always reminded of Kevin Durant and how he shouldn't have gone out because he was bothered by that calf issue. We don't know if that calf issue could be an Achilles, which we saw what happened with Jason Tatum. And now he's literally going to be out for pretty much all of next season, and he's got to work back basically 2 years from now. I don't think if you're the Pacers, you have a talented young player, you will live to fight another day. Let him heal in the offseason. That's just my take.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think if this was Game 7, I would feel differently. Like if this was, all right, we're putting it all on the line for Game 7.
Game 7. This is their Game 7.
No,
it's not. No. It's not. It's Game 6 because they still have capable scorers on the squad. They still have a facilitator, a guy who can possibly be that orchestrator, that engine in the operation of the offense, and TJ McConnell. Like they still have pieces they can use to possibly have a chance at winning this game and extending it to Game 7. But Game 6, you sit Tyrese Halliburton for sure. You don't risk aggravating that injury anymore because at that point, say you do, you obviously need him for the future. He is the future of the team. You could go like worst case scenario, you lose this game, but Tyrese Halliburton is more rested to then the Pacers can now simply dominate the regular season and emerge as possibly the top team in the East up there with the Celtics, except on their side, they're younger. They have a bigger window because obviously, those guys' contracts are coming up. They're obviously older, especially KP. Don't know what his situation is in terms of his health, but you have a chance to be the top dogs in the East next year. Worst case scenario, if you sit in this game. Best case scenario, best case scenario, he's rested enough somewhat for Game 7. Like if the Pacers were to somehow pull off a dub at home, he's rested enough for Game 7 to now you can actually put it out on the line. Like that would make more sense. You put it out on the line for Game 7. If you have Halliburton on the court, it's not, you definitely get more positives. Even though it is a risk, you get more positives from that, having a rested Halliburton in a possible Game 7 situation where, you know, and you also have momentum because you guys are coming off of a win. You have Halliburton back, whether he's 80%, 70%, 60%, even 50%, you still have more of a chance this way because he is in a better he's in a better situation health-wise than he was in Game 6.
We're working off of the assumption that the Pacers can go out there and win without him. You are 2 games away from a championship. Your player just played all of Game 5, was moving well, was not himself, but was moving well, and he came to you and said, I'm good to go. You are 2 wins from a title. I don't care what the East looks like next year. You might never be back here again, ever.
No.
If Rick Carlisle made the right decision the first time, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation because we would have already had
that's a step too far. No, that's a step too far.
We would have already had more.
We don't know. We didn't know about the injury.
His cap is more aggravated now because he was on the court longer. If he had stayed in the locker room or stayed on the sideline earlier on in the game, letting sort of the role players kind of pick up where he left off, we would have a more rejuvenated and rested Halliburton for these next 2 games.
When
he's going off, you got to remember too, he's also going off of adrenaline. So yes, he's warm, whatever the case may be. But after that game, you can't go, well, he came to me, he wants to play. I'm like, no, we don't know the degree of how bad this calf strain is.
And he had 0 points. It's not like he was hot. He had 0 points.
When he went down, the Thunder took control of that game. Now, the Pacers made one of their crazy runs. No doubt about it. They made a crazy run, unquestionably, and it was great to see the role players, especially TJ, step up. But when he went down, without Halliburton, this is a bigger mismatch than we even thought going into the finals.
But if you're Carlisle,
you watched with your own 2 eyeballs, not to date you. You watched Willis limp out of that tunnel and go hit 2 shots and win the title. Granted, that was Game 7. And it helps when you got Clyde Frazier up there putting up 19 assists. But you watch that happen. However,
by the way, he also, I think, had 35 or 36 points in the final in that game.
And I'm playing devil's advocate because I, too, would sit him. I think that a long career of Hall of Fame play is more valuable than going out there, especially when you're already fighting an uphill battle. Okay, let's move on. We're going to come back to the NBA because we got – Shane, did you have one more thing?
I was just going to say, I think having it's a different the example you brought up, how the Thunder took control of the game with Halliburton sitting. It's a different game when you go into it having the game plan of Halliburton not playing. Like, they had to adjust on. That's a huge piece of their team, definitely obviously on offense, that they have to now sort of make up for a hole that they have to find a way to fill in the middle of the game, basically in the middle of the game. You know, with the most important stretch of the game still to go. Like, going into a game where you have a game plan set, especially when you have a coach like Rick Carlisle, having a game plan set where you plan for Tyrese Halliburton not playing is a much better situation than you're in the middle of the game and the heart and soul of your team goes down. I just think that's 2 different situations.
They were down 8 or 9 when he went out, but this comes back to you guys are putting a lot of, get to Game 7, you play him. He's the best player on the team. If you want to get to Game 7, every statistical measure we have says that you need him out there. But again,
my thing is getting to Game 7
and next year, you got to account for that. Because a lot of I'm not worried about
Hallie's future, to me as a coach, Hallie's future is more important to me than trying to get to a Game 7 this year. That's me.
I agree. But that holds true for Game 7. It's not like Game 7 is going to come around and the doctors are going to be like, oh, okay, cool. He's no longer at risk for further injury.
No, for sure. But his insurance is built up.
But if you say that you want to protect him for Game 6, you have to hold true to that stance for Game 7. You can't say, oh, well, his long-term health is worth Game 7 in Oklahoma City.
But that's coming off a full game of rest, though.
He'd have to be a decoy.
Again, this is a muscle strain. I think that. Well, we're not doctors. We don't want to speculate, but my initial thought would be it's not going to heal in 6 days.
Yeah.
You know.
No, but he'll be in better shape having sit this game to where now he's more rested for a Game 7. Where that's that's do or die. That's a do or die situation for both teams.
This is do or die for the Pacers. Game 6 is do or die.
But he just aggravated that though. Playing him immediately after aggravating that muscle, as you said, can be not speculating, but if it is a muscle injury, as according to the reports, muscle injuries are delicate. So
that's going to be the case in Game 7 too. That muscle is delicate.
But he has a better chance of being able to make an impact in that game opposed to in this game where it's right after he has more time in between the injuries.
We're not talking about impact based on we're not talking about his ability to impact the game based on the injury. We're talking about preventing against future injury. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So obviously any player who gets an extra rest is going to be able to perform at a higher level, most likely. We're talking about preventing future injury, but it's neither here nor there because ultimately you got to sit him. He's a young player with a long career out in front of him. Okay, We're going to come back to the NBA. We're not done with the NBA because there was a huge trade in NBA basketball, but we're going to take a brief detour and we're going to head over to Washington, D.C. because we're talking a little bit of Commanders. We had mini camp last week, and so football season is starting to ramp up, and we want to talk about, we all know about Jaden Daniels. We all know about Terry McLaurin. We're all well aware of Bobby Wagner's excellence. We want to talk about some guys that you might not see coming that we think are going to have a breakout year for the Washington Commanders. We'll let Shane go first because I know Shane loves a good breakout player discussion.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, yeah, I got a couple of players on this list, but starting off with one, I definitely think Quan Martin is a guy we need to have our eyes on going into the season. I mean, he was definitely a bright spot for this defense last year, a secondary that really did make some bang plays, some key turnovers when the defense needed it most. Now, that being said, the defense did overall need work. It does currently need work, especially on that D line, but the secondary, or at least those two safeties, that combo between Jeremy Chin, who obviously is no longer in DC, and Quan Martin, that was a huge bright spot for this team as a whole. According to reports, Quan Martin is doing very well in OTAs. Now, even though that is, just helmets and shorts, that still is pretty important. You're still going through the plays. Speed definitely matters. Footwork definitely matters. Scheme definitely matters. And Quan Martin is coming up big in practice. He's making those plays. I think having another year under this sort of Dan Quinn, Joe Witt defense, having another year in this same scheme, I think it's going to mean a lot for his development. I mean, we saw what that jump was like between his first year and second year. We see what the difference in scheme meant between a Ron Rivera defense and a Dan Quinn defense.
Oh, so, drive-by on Ron Rivera? A drive-by on Ron Rivera? He's already, leave him alone.
Little stray.
Wow.
But if he can make a similar sort of step forward that he made in his second year, if he can make a similar step forward like that in his third year, I think we really could be looking at Quan Martin. And I said this on the Rank Tank this past weekend. We really could be looking at Quan Martin as possibly one of the best DBs in the NFC, possibly in the NFL. So that's one guy on my list.
I love it. I think that last year was his first year as a full-time starter, right? And so anytime you get that under your belt, you should have a lot of improvement just in terms of being fully ingrained in the speed of the game, the mental aspects of the game, everything you said about knowing the game plan, understanding the defense, understanding what offenses want to do to you. So I love the Quan Martin call. B. Smith, who do you like?
Surprising, I kind of like the running game a little bit, and I try to lean a little bit towards Brian Robinson, an improvement to the offensive line. Just saying. Don't be surprised. Am I expecting 1,000-yard season? No. But I think he is going to, make a slight difference towards things offensively. Everybody's going to be pointing towards Jaden Daniels, just the fact that, hey, he's got an offensive line, but that also helps the running game too. So that helps.
Are we losing Brian a little bit?
His picture, but we can hear. I mean, we can hear you fine.
Cooking
we can hear you fine. Yeah, it's too hot.
Saying, that will kind of be a little bit of a surprise. Not a lot, not a big deal, but with the addition to the offensive line, because everybody's talking about Daniels, and his ability to throw the ball, well, guess what? Brian Robinson probably get a little more help with him as well. That's going to add to their offense and make it more effective.
And Shane, I know you're thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. I'm assuming we're on the same page here. Is if you guys thought that B. Smith loved Rick Carlisle, you should see how much B. Smith loves Brian Robinson.
I do.
Rightfully so, though. Rightfully so.
Rightfully
he definitely is a guy that deserves the love.
Brian, I'm interested to see what Brian Robinson has.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if he can be someone who is a true, reliable sort of short yardage back who can maybe even provide you a little bit more. I hope that he ascends to another plane. I'll be very interested to see what he does in the next round. I know no matter what he does, he will have Brian Smith's support. And for the rest of us here on the Sports Overtime Podcast. I've got a little twofer for you guys. I don't know if this is breaking the rules, okay? Noah Brown goes down with an injury, right? Deebo Samuel is not your traditional wide receiver. I feel like most of the
I know where you're going. I know where you're going. I like it. I like it. I like it.
Go ahead.
No. I don't want to see your thunder. Go ahead. I
want to see.
I'm with you.
Go ahead. I want you to say it.
Well, I'm thinking about Jalen Lane.
Okay. So
you're Jalen Lane.
So you're one step ahead of me. Here's my twofer. You're one step ahead of me. I was gonna go a semi breakout player, Luke McCaffrey, LMC. He's got the genes. He's got the makeup. He was impressive in training camp last year. Can he fill that role of a true number 2 wide receiver? But if Luke McCaffrey fills that role, who's going to return punts? How about a little Jalen Lane returning punts? One of the best punt returners in the ACC last year. Did the kickoffs and the punts to Jalen Lane because Luke McCaffrey needs to stay healthy because he's your number 2. You can't put him out there for that. So let's have Jalen Lane with a little breakout season.
Connor's cooking.
A McCaffrey Lane combo breakout. I like
that. I was thinking about Luke, but from the reports I read, it didn't seem like he was doing so hot in practice, at least before Noah Brown went down. But I mean, he definitely has obviously more of an opportunity to compete for those receiver 3 reps now that Noah Brown is down. It seems like, not really sure the severity of that injury, but I mean, I really like Jalen Lane. I mean, according to all of the reports from camp, I mean, the coaches are really impressed with this guy's speed, like his ability to stretch the field. I mean, his speed alone is really what made them think this guy, and they still believe Jalen Lane is the best punt return specialist guy out of the whole draft class this past year. They got a lot of faith in Jalen Lane from what they've seen in OTAs, and seeing that in OTAs means a lot. I know we have to take that sort of with a grain of salt when it comes to other things, but
shorts and helmets.
Yeah, but when you talk about speed in OTAs, I mean, they're not hitting. So the main thing these guys are doing is exercising that speed. I mean, that's really what makes guys pop the most in this stage of the offseason is speed, because I mean, they're obviously not doing anything contact. They're going through plays. The intensity is still high in those 7-on-7 team periods, but I mean, that's where speed is really is the most visible. I mean, that's really what matters the most in OTA periods is the speed. And the fact that Jalen Lane is, raising eyebrows and widening eyes as much as he is at this point, I'm really excited to see what the UVA alum might be in a position to do. Or the tech alum. Sorry, my bad. The tech alum.
That hurt. Not fired.
My bad, Connor. My bad.
Spray's flying all over the place right now.
There's nothing.
My bad, Connor.
Oh my God! You are lucky you did such a good job of election coverage last night. I'd be racked right now. Don't do that.
Sorry about that.
Put him in any other school. Put him in any other school on accident that you want to. Okay. The former Coastal Carolina receiver. Don't do him like that. Virginia Tech Hokie Jalen Lane, one thing we know for sure is he got a great education. That's what we're certain of, okay? Now, none of us mentioned Jerzon Newton, okay? This guy was the 36th pick in the draft a couple of years ago. That's you're a whisper from being a first-round.
Take.
Jonathan Allen is out, so you signed what? They got Kinlaw. They signed Javon Kinlaw, but they still are probably going to need someone to step up on the interior of that defensive line and replace Jonathan Allen snaps. Jerzon Newton definitely has the physical talent to do it. He's got the profile to do it. Can he step in there and become someone who's a major contributor as a second-round pick? I think he's another candidate, but it's clear that, look, me and B. Smith went offense. Quan Martin's a good pick. No disrespect to Jerzon, but he got left off that list. All right.
I think that's a good take.
We're going to be talking a lot of football throughout the summer. You guys got anything else from the NFL, or can we walk back to the NBA and talk about young Desmond Bain?
I got one more defensive name. I love my defensive guys. I got one more defensive name. I really got three, but I'm gonna give y'all one right now.
Let me guess. You're going Dorrance Armstrong here.
No, actually, but that's a good pull too. Oh, wow. No, I'm not going Dorrance. That's a good pull. I'm actually looking a little more on the obvious side. I mean, I'm looking at Deron Payne and Frankie Louvu, but specifically, I mean, Payne two different cases. One guy having a
breakout kid. Those guys are Pro Bowl caliber players right now.
Well, I think Payne is coming off of a disappointing year this past season. Sure. He dealing with injuries, his production declined. Yeah, but I mean, he does have to see a lot of double teams. The way this D-line looks right now, he'll probably have to see a lot of double teams this year. So I think they'll both have breakout seasons for different reasons. I think Deron Payne is going to sort of have a bounce back year from last year, and I think Frankie Louvu is going to build onto the Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber year that he had this past year. Going from, I think he'll be, instead of a Pro Bowl alternate, I think he'll be a Pro Bowl bona fide starter this coming year. I think that's what it's going to be.
You're really stretching the rules of the breakout player of the year definition.
I said a little more on the obvious side.
This guy came in. He said, "You know who I think's really going to have a breakout type of year is Terry McLaurin. I think he's really going to do some things."
But that's not the same. That's not the
Frankie
same though.
Already a stud.
But it's hard. But it's hard to have two back-to-back years like that. It's hard to have, especially as a defensive guy, The guys who have back-to-back years like that, who can string those seasons together consistently, are the guys who we look at as superstars. Like the guys we look at as consistently. Yeah, I mean, even a step below that. I mean,
he said every year, and I said, yeah, Aaron Donald comes to mind. Yeah,
but I do think Frankie Louvu, in terms of my breakout justification, I do think he could build his way to being one of those tier one linebackers, defenders.
He was second team All Pro last year. I think last season was his breakout year. I think that it would have been good to name him going into last season.
But it takes consistency to stay in that room. It takes consistency to stay in that room. I think if we see it, I think we're going to see it again this year. But I think what that'll do is it'll solidify him as one of those top dogs in the NFL. And that's something the Commanders need.
That's next week's segment is consistent, still good players on the Commanders. All right, let's go back over to the NBA because we had a monster trade come down right in the middle of the NBA Finals. The Buss family has traded the Los Angeles Lakers for $10 billion to Tim Walters, the owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. No, I'm kidding. That's not what I'm talking about. But $10 billion?
Yeah.
Bill? Mr. Buss, Dr. Buss, bought that team in 1979 for $67 million. How's that for return on investment? None of my stocks are bringing back that kind of money.
I wasn't born at that time, so I really don't remember, kind of, sort of.
That can't possibly be true.
I will say this: they still maintain like a 15% stake in the team itself. But I almost say it's the end of a Lakers era because you think about it, the Lakers were all right, but not great. And when Dr. Buss came in, it was a big deal, and to take it over like he did, and then just basically reshape it to where you saw stars, huge stars, not just on the court, but off the court, coming to the Forum back in the day, winning championships, and not just multiple eras. You had the Magic era. You had Shaq and Kobe. You had Kobe and Pau Gasol. I mean,
you got one out of Bron and AD?
And Bron and KD, or 80, that is.
80, yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's a big deal. I mean, it is the end of an era, so to speak.
Dr. Buss, no question, one of the great owners in the history of the NBA. I got the name wrong, by the way. It's Mark Walter. I got to get more familiar with my rich guy circles. You know what I mean? I got to tap in with my billionaire friends so I get to know those guys a little better. But I think that this is ultimately a good thing for the Lakers. The Buss family's entire fortune was the Lakers. Whereas this guy is coming in with multiple billions of dollars to his name already. He's obviously transformed the Dodgers into the crown jewel of the MLB. We're probably going to see upgrades to Staples Center. We're going to see a lot of things that the Buss family wasn't able to do because all of their money was tied up in the ownership of the team as opposed to having money coming into the league. So I think you could see the Lakers maybe capture those glory years.
Maybe some better team structuring. I think that's something that would be valued in LA.
Jeannie Buss is going to be the governor of the team for at least a few years. That was part of the sale agreement. So in terms of Pelinka and Buss, I think that power structure might remain in place. But we were told Mark Cuban was going to be governor of the Mavs, and at the first chance they had, they got rid of him and a guy named Luka Doncic as well. But Luka Doncic traded in the middle of the season. We had a big trade that occurred just recently. Desmond Bane on his way to the Memphis Grizzlies, to the Orlando Magic, for nothing less than a superstar haul. The trade return on Desmond Bane, I would say, is probably greater than any of us expected. I want to make sure I don't get any parts of this wrong, but it was Cole Anthony. It was multiple first-round picks. I think it was 4 first-round picks. Is that right? I'm going to make sure I got this right. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, 4 first-round picks, and a pick swap. So essentially 5 first-round picks, Cole Anthony and Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, Pope is very expensive, had a down year, and is getting a little older. So some people think that getting rid of him was actually a contract that the Magic had to take on as part of the trade, as opposed to an asset that they valued, or excuse me, that the Grizzlies had to take on as opposed to an asset that they valued. But this is a massive return for Desmond Bane. The third best guy on the Grizzlies, a solid player. He's never been an all-star. I don't think he's ever been relatively close to being an all-star. And he gets 4 first-round picks, a swap, a solid role player in Cole Anthony, and Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who can fill, at least a small role on a championship team. We've seen him do it multiple times. I was shocked when I saw the return for Desmond Bane. Who do you guys think won this trade?
The thing that I remember listening to as that trade was happening was that the Orlando Magic, I think the last time that they traded for a player was like 2022, maybe. They have done things through the draft. That's how they built this team to where it is. And so when they had a chance to get Bane, this is one thing that they said, let's strike. The talk was, let's strike quickly, let's strike now. It's as good a chance that given the Celtics circumstances with Jason Tatum essentially being out for extended time, the Knicks the Knicks going through their thing, it's a chance for Orlando to really kind of solidify themselves and strike and actually keep pace with the Pacers themselves. So this isn't something that they, for lack of the old school term, they didn't go all willy-nilly on this one when it came to deciding whether to trade for him and give up draft picks for him, because they worked through the draft to get to where they are.
And I think that unquestionably the biggest need that the Magic had going into this offseason was shooting. And Desmond Bane is one of the very best shooters in the entire NBA. He is a 39, 40% three-point shooter consistently. And so the Magic filled a huge need there. Shane, so it sounds like B. Smith thinks the Magic won this trade. They've got Paolo Banchero. They're trying to maximize his upcoming prime. They're going for a title next year or the year after. Yeah. They are putting their hat in the ring in a very weak Eastern Conference. Shane, do you agree with B. Smith? Do you feel like the Magic won this trade?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely overpaid for sure.
Big time.
I mean, definitely overpaid. I would say I disagree with B. Smith if they had more of a reliable sort of superstar-esque center of their team in Ja, but I mean, it seems like it's just there's something new with him every season. I mean, he's always getting into something.
No,
he's suspended or just can't stay on the court. I mean, for whatever,
play a lot of
can't stay off Instagram Live. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
And then can't also, I'm not gonna get into that on the pod. I can't get into that on the pod.
What was this
you said what?
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into what I saw.
My fault. Go ahead, Shane. Are we losing? Oh,
he's losing it. That's what it is.
That was the spot he was at.
I wasn't trying to get into it.
Trying not to go there.
But yeah, he's not a guy that is reliable in a sense of his appearance on the court. So if they had more of a reliable guy in that sense who you knew you would see consistently on the court, I would say the Grizzlies won because of the resources for the future that they have, which would help them, including the number 16 pick in the draft this year, resources that would allow them to build around this guy who, when he is on the court, is one of the best players in the NBA for sure, especially one of the best younger stars of the NBA. But B. Smith, I'm with you with that in mind. I think the Orlando Magic definitely won this trade because they really have, with Bane on the court, you get a backcourt combo with Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, a duo that can really do just about anything. I mean, that's a duo that can defend, they can facilitate, they can also score.
Desmond Bane a good defender?
No. Not saying Bane is a defender. I'm saying the defense comes from Suggs. The facilitation comes from Suggs. Suggs is also a guy that can. Yeah, Suggs is also a guy that can score. He can knock down those open shots, those set shots. But Bane obviously is just a legit more of a scorer. He's definitely a shooter. He's a guy that can get streaky. He can give you 25 to 30 points really whenever he gets the touches like that. I don't imagine he'll get as many touches in this offense as he did in Memphis because of the Franz Wagners, because of the Brancaros, but I definitely think overall this is a great position that the Orlando Magic is in. They really have one of the best starting fives in the East, a conference that, Connor, you highlighted is on the weaker side right now, especially with the Celtics on the cusp of a roster collapse. Don't know what the Sixers could look like in the next couple of years. The Pacers, they're getting up there, but talent-wise, I wouldn't say they have more talent than the way this Magic team looks right now. I wouldn't say the Cavs have more depth, but I wouldn't say talent-wise, I think the Magic are on par with any other team in the East right now.
So you guys made a great piece, and I think go ahead, B-Smith.
Well, the talk was, from what I was listening on and reading and stuff like that they're a similar setup to what the Celtics were like when they had Jason Tatum. They had all this depth on going through the bench, long guys that can play both ends of the court. You're seeing that type of makeup. It's that copy paste. It's a copycat league. We're starting to see that now with the Magic. That's why they went for the Bane deal. It's not flashy, but in the bigger picture, this makes them look more effective in the Eastern Conference.
And I think you guys made the key point, which is if you want to win a title and you're in the East, you need to strike now. Tatum is out next year. It's going to take him a while to get back after that. And other than that, the East looks desolate. So if you think you can go win a title with one move, you make that move and you try to go win a title. I'm going to make the case for Memphis. I think the trade has a lot of benefits for both sides. I'm going to make the case for Memphis since you guys made the case for Orlando. I'll start by saying I got the name wrong. It's called Shotgun Willie. But we'll just leave that where it is, okay? The listeners can feel free to Google that on their own. It was an unfortunate incident. And I will say, I felt like John Morant is still dealing with he deals with injuries. He's one of those players who puts his body at risk often. Look, Shane hopped off cam so that he could go Google shotgun.
Yes.
So I felt like he had a rough stretch where he got in trouble a couple of times for a couple of decisions that a lot of people felt were not very smart ones for a role model. But I felt like last year, in terms of that stuff, it seemed like he corrected a lot of that, right? He's had a long stretch here where he hasn't had any off-the-court issues as far as I can remember. So hopefully John Morant has corrected that. But 67, 63, 57, 61, 9, and 50. John Morant has never played 68 games in a season. So you guys make a great point in that if the Grizzlies are going to do anything, they need John Morant to be on the floor for 70 to 75 games a year. Now,
I will throw a footnote on that. Yeah. I will throw a footnote on that. The talk was, too, the Grizzlies also have to make a decision. There is talk that do they give him a 2 or 3 year extension? I hate to say this. If we're not talking about at times, not just the injuries, but the off the court stuff, if that doesn't play into this, are you gentlemen? I'm going to pose a question to you.
Well, hold on, B-Smith. B-Smith, hold on real quick. Hold that question. Hold it. And let me make the case for the Grizzlies really quick, and then we can end it. So keep that question in mind, and let me just make the case for the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, we're looking at the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers have 2 stars and then a lot of really good role players. Right? The Oklahoma City Thunder have Chet Holmgren. Whether he's a star yet or not is debatable. If you say he's not, then they have 2 stars and a lot of really good depth. If you look at the Denver Nuggets, 2 stars and then some good depth when they won the title, right? So if we're looking at this new NBA where there is essentially a hard cap, and to pay 3 superstar level salaries means that you simply cannot afford depth. And what we're seeing is that the top heavy teams, maybe it's a little bit more of a struggle. The Dallas Mavericks last year, 2 superstars and then a lot of really good depth. Under the new salary cap, it appears as though the way to maximize your chance at a title is to have 2 stars and then use the money you have left over to build out some really good depth. The era of 3 to 4 superstars is essentially over as long as the salary cap works this way. So when the Memphis Grizzlies look at their roster and they see that Desmond Bane over the next 4 years, 36 mil, 39 mil, 42 mil, and $44 million in 2028 as a 30-year-old for Desmond Bane, who is a really good shooter and a good overall player, but does not necessarily bring, in my opinion, $35 to $40 million worth of production to your team, and you say, okay, let's go with our 2 stars. We're getting great return on this, right? We're getting $1.50 for $1 for this trade, and we can use all those picks and Cole Anthony and maybe KCP to build out that depth over the next couple years. We're going to ride with Ja and Triple J, who we feel like are both better than Desmond Bane, and now we're going to try to build a team that is very deep. I think that is not an unintelligent way to go about building a championship team. Now, that means you got to hit your draft picks or make smart trades with them, right? You got to hit on these draft picks if you're going to do that. The Pacers hit on the Nembhard pick. You have got to make those things work. Obviously, if they have a bad drafting track record, then none of this matters. But in terms of what the NBA landscape looks like right now financially, having Desmond Bane on your books for that much money when you're already paying John Morant and Triple J makes it really difficult to build that championship team. And when John Morant plays basketball, the Grizzlies are a winning team. Now, his production waned a little bit last year, but overall, I think people forget just how good the Grizzlies got and how good the Grizzlies got quickly with John Morant
absolutely
in the lineup playing ball.
Absolutely.
He's a great playmaker and he's a ferocious attacker of the basket. He was a superstar until he ran into some of those problems and faded a little bit. But now you got 2 guys, you've got salary cap relief, you got a bunch of first-round picks, you're adding Cole Anthony and KCP to your bench. I don't think that it was a bad trade for the Grizzlies considering what you got back. And for the Magic, you're going to go try to win title here in the next couple of years, and Desmond Bane helps you do that immensely and fills your biggest need. So I don't think it was a terrible trade for either team.
Well, that was my initial point. Like, I didn't think this was a bad trade for the Grizzlies at all. Yeah. I just thought it put a lot of pressure or more pressure on Ja Morant to be on the court. Like I said, I mean, we've talked about this, many times in terms of how deep the West is, but I mean, we know how good this Grizzlies team can be once they do have their guys on the court, especially Ja. When Ja is playing, we know at their best, they're a top 3, top 2 team in the West, statistically at least according to their record. That was my initial point, was that Ja Morant has to be on the court in order for them to be in a situation where we're saying, oh yeah, the Grizzlies won this trade. The Grizzlies won this trade. It takes Ja Morant staying out of trouble. You're not saying he's likely to find trouble in the future. I mean, I think he definitely had a better year last year in terms of being available, but it's definitely up to Ja in terms of how many games is he going to play? How often will we see him on the court? Because if we're just talking about a Grizzlies team built around Jaren Jackson, I mean, we're not really talking about much. If we're talking about
if the Grizzlies are even with Desmond Bane, if the Grizzlies are going to be a contender, Ja has to play. The Grizzlies won 48 games last year. The Rockets won 52, and they were the 2 seed. They were 4 games out of the 2 seed. They were 2 games out of the 3 seed. So that Western Conference was jumbled up. You look at it and you see that they were the 8 seed. The other thing is with Desmond Bane and Ja Morant and Triple J, they were not in the same league as the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that's who you got to get through now.
Which leads to my original thought. If you're a GM and there's a potential from what I was reading and hearing about, they're coming up on a potential 2 to 3 year extension for Ja. And you mentioned the fact that, when he's playing, would you take a chance on that? On someone who has the physical ability and the talent to do so, but will it hold up? I'm talking about the off the court stuff. Do you take a chance on 2 or 3 year extension where it could, dare I say, it could fall apart? I'm saying there are question marks, legitimate question marks of whether or not you give him a 2 or 3 year extension, which is very possible, and you have to look into that. You can't just go, and do you build your team through the draft like the Magic have? That's what they've done. That's why I said this is so rare from what I was listening to and reading, the fact that the Magic built the crux of this team through the draft. Does Memphis have that ability in the event they say, you know what, Ja, we got too much we're dealing with here. We're going to continue to build what we have through the draft and be successful at it? I don't know. And you can't help to ignore it and say, we'll take a chance on the 2-3 years. What if something happens again?
Well, they'll certainly have the opportunity to build through the draft now because they got all of the Magic's picks. I personally think Ja Morant's ceiling is at a place where I would give him an extension. And if this version of the Grizzlies is going to reach their full potential, it's going to be on the back of Ja Morant. He's going to be the guy to take them to the highest possible heights. I ride with that.
For sure.
Out, you reset, and then you just go try to find another Ja Morant, or what he was 2 years ago at least. Shane, give us a final point on this trade, and then we're getting out of here.
Yeah, we know Ja Morant at his best looks like an MVP in the NBA. I mean, there was a point in time.
I think.
Yeah, there was a point in time where guys like Shaq and those ESPN inside the NBA heads were saying Ja Morant could possibly be the best player in the NBA right now. Talking about that.
I thought he was one of the faces of the league when he first came on. I thought he was the face of the league.
Yeah, fighting for face of the league. So I mean, at one point we were talking about Ja before we were talking about Ant. So I definitely think if Ja is on the court, if he does kind of build off of that good standing and momentum that he created last year, that really this Grizzlies team as a whole created last year, I definitely think we could say the Grizzlies won this trade just because, I mean, if you're looking at the Magic, even though the East is weaker, say the Magic do make it through the East, which isn't a promise because, I mean, we know how impressive the Pistons look as the season progressed. We know how even without Jason Tatum, how deep the Celtics are in terms of talent right now, at least going into this year. The Sixers are showing some promise in terms of their draft. Let me finish. I'm just saying. They gotta step away from the Sixers. They were a playoff team. They were a playoff team 2 seasons ago, and now they have a top 3-4 pick in the draft this year. I'm just saying. But even if the Magic do, all right, fine. Leave the Sixers out, whatever. But even if the Magic do make it, to the finals, they're going to see one of these these beasts in the West that are likely going to take them down, whether it's Thunder, whether it's the Timberwolves. So you can talk about Lakers, but I can't talk about the Sixers, bro. Wrap the pod up.
The Lakers have Luka.
I'm sorry.
Wrap the pod.
So, here's the two final things. The Magic now have to pay Bane, Wagner, Banchero, and they have to pay the deep. Oh shoot, I done forgot his name. You got to cut this part out.
Who?
Suggs. They got to pay all 4 of those guys, so they're not going to have a lot of money left over, and they have no first-round draft picks going forward. So it's a tough spot, and they're trying to go with the top-heavy model, and so we'll see how it goes. We're going to call it right there. When we pod again, we will have an NBA champion the next time we do a podcast, and then we transition into football season. We'll talk a little bit of baseball and a whole lot of football coming up after that. Great job, fellas. Another episode of the 13 News Now Sports Overtime podcast in the books.